And I call to order this regular meeting of the Verona Township Council for Monday, September 9th, 2024. Madam Clerk, would you please read the Open Public Meetings Act compliance statements?
The notice requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act have been satisfied with respect to this meeting of the Township Council. The meeting time and date were included in the public meeting notice along with the public internet link and telephone call-in information. Said notice and meeting agenda was posted in the municipal building and sent to the official newspapers of the township, the Verona City Road Times and the Star Ledger, at least 48 hours preceding the start time of this meeting. The agenda and handouts can be viewed online at veronanj.org/council meetings. Public comment period will be held in the order it is listed on the meeting agenda, and instructions on how to comment will be provided at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Would you call the roll, please?
Councilwoman Holland? Here. Councilwoman McGrath? Here. Councilman Roman?
Here.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy?
Here.
Mayor Tamboro?
Here.
Mayor also present tonight is Township Manager Joseph Diarco, Deputy Township Manager Kevin O'Sullivan, Township Attorney Brian Aloya, myself, Municipal Clerk Jennifer Kiernan.
Thank you. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. For the mayor's report today, just a few items. First, the last couple of weeks, we had two very serious fires in Verona, which necessitated the response of our fire department, our rescue squad, our police department, our Department of Public Works, our Office for Emergency Management, our construction officials office, and all of those groups, as well as several mutual aid partners, including the fire and EMS, helped to extinguish and manage those emergencies. I can't thank enough the firefighters and all the rest of the emergency personnel who dealt with dangerous situations in order to do that twice. But also like to thank the Verona community who, in our true fashion, has shown an outpouring of support for both families, which is really what it means to be part of a big small town. So thank you to everybody for that. I'd like to congratulate the Verona Unico on another successful Labor Day 5K run. I congratulate all of my council colleagues and our administration folks, our town attorney who participated in the run, and the Verona Rescue Squad member Christopher Sluck, who beat everybody from the council and our staff. But he's 21, or 18. Sorry, he's 18, so he has a little advantage that way. But congratulations, really, everybody was a winner in that. I'd like to thank our rec department for a great summer, not only with the pool, but also with our recreation camps, playgrounds. I'd also like to thank all of our pool staff, as well as buildings and grounds, for a very successful season. I got a lot of great feedback from pool goers on everything this year, and I know a lot of people look forward to the relining of the pool that will be starting soon. I'd like to thank all of the sponsors for our summer concert series, especially the Chamber of Commerce, who added another concert. I had the pleasure of being able to attend two. Unfortunately, my schedule didn't allow me to do the others, so I thank Deputy Mayor McAvoy and Councilman Ruman for stepping in to introduce all of our sponsors there. Today, I remember Julian Holland, a 2020 graduate of Verona High School, who recently passed away, along with a large contingent of our community attended her services on Saturday. And I just want to share my support to the Holland family. It was a difficult day, but it was, once again, really important and lovely to see the outpouring of support from the community. There were a couple hundred people present, and a lot of people traveled from quite a distance to be there. The Verona Environmental Commission meets this Wednesday evening, so please attend if you are interested. And finally, I would like to remind everybody and invite everybody to our September 11th Remembrance Ceremony this Wednesday at 8:45 in front of our memorial. And Mr. Coltrane.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I too, would like to invite anyone in town who's ever on the broadcast here to Wednesday, September 11th at Eagle Rock Reservation, and wherever the camera may be, I will give this to the town clerk and she can post it. And it's a very solemn day for a lot of people, but I mean, if you were involved at the time, it's heart-wrenching. So that's one of the things. Please, I know it may interfere with yours, but anyone who would like to attend, please come. The next thing is on September 24th, Tuesday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Essex County Cody Arena. We're going to have our Senior Wellness Day, and I will give all of these to the clerk, like I had said. And seniors can get tested for blood pressure and an array of other things that they would be needing. If transportation is needed, they are supplying that. You can check with the departments at Citizen Service, and they'll be glad to get you involved. Finally, Sunday, September 29th is Fall Family Festival at the Environmental Center, and it is from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. and 4-H crafts, seasonal refreshments, canoeing, hiking, etc., etc., etc. So please come out and join us. And that's all I have from the county's point of view. Anything in your parks or anyone else needs anything, Mayor, Council?
Any questions for county liaison? No, we thank you for.
Thank you very much.
We thank you for getting the audio traffic signals installed.
I only relay the message that we can help, and it's always the county executive, Mr. DiVincenzo, Department of Public Works. They do an awesome job.
That's a long hard thing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. At this point, Mr. Diarco, that's much matter.
Thank you, Mayor. With item one, agenda, the streetscape RFPs came in. I believe we had 6 companies that's been reviewed. As you're aware, the RFP went out for price and design. So we'll be setting up special meetings for a presentation of the various designs that the companies would like to propose to you. So your final decision will be based on price and design for your streetscape design. So we'll set that up through the clerk's office in coordination with a council meeting. We have a meeting coming up with the 3 services again, the rescue squad, the fire department, and the police for their 501c3s, and the foundation from the police prior to having a meeting with a fundraising company. That's coming up shortly. And then an item that came up this week or last week to my attention, there was a request to use the township seal. And before I commented on the township seal by a resident, I looked in your codes. And then I discussed it with the town attorney. You have nothing in your code protecting your seal, and it's also not copyrighted. So we're going to be moving to copyright your seal and draft an ordinance for use of the seal will be only by the township or with the permission of the mayor and council. That's the way the ordinance will be written, but we'll do it both ways. I've encountered that before. Sorry, I missed it in my first year, but we'll get to that for you. We have started the department 2025 staff level preparations for your budget, and that'll proceed on schedule before we get to the council meeting and the department heads presenting their budgets to you. But that process has started. And Kevin will report on all the project progress on all the projects. Those are the only new things I have to do at this time. And union negotiations have started with OPIU, and I will mention those in closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Diarco. Mr. Sullivan from the Center.
Good evening, thank you. I will try to move through my report quickly. There's a lot of items, a lot of updates since our last meeting. With the full rate study and strategic plan. We are winding down that information now that the pool season is closed. We anticipate between presenting that and circulating that through the Recreation Advisory Committee that we will be prepared to bring that to the mayor and council at the second meeting in October. That's what we're targeting for discussion of the rates and strategic plan. Regarding sewer infrastructure, we continue with the smoke testing program. The town is about 70% complete, proceeding as expected. We'll be summarizing all the findings at the completion of that for all the upcoming needs throughout the collection system. The primary clarifier pump station project, we still are waiting for iBank to authorize us to go out to bid. However, we were able to coordinate a meeting with the iBank on this project and a few other projects that's scheduled for September 17th. Hopefully we can get a few of these projects advancing into the next bidding phases. The next two are the UV disinfection system project for the wastewater plant and the microstream project. We received submissions for the design and construction management services for both projects on August 28th. There are resolutions for consideration by the mayor and council tonight for advancing those projects into the early design stages and the applications to the iBank. Again, those are projects that were included in the capital planning at the beginning of the year and were included in the utility rate study also at the beginning of the year. We also continue to work through a number of other miscellaneous sewer projects, including an RFP for the operator, nitrate sampling for the wastewater plant, and we continue to investigate the Derwent Avenue collection system line. We are requesting quotes for heavy cleaning, tree root removal, and televising of those trunk lines in the near future. Moving on to the drinking water wells, we continue to work through construction of Lynn Drive well. That's advancing as expected. Should be back in line by early to mid-December. The Fairview Avenue well is, again, one of those iBank projects we will be discussing with the iBank on September 17th. However, it seems we will need to wait for Green Acres to advance their exemption application that we submitted to them back in June. And then we continue to work with special counsel on a number of class action lawsuits against a number of different companies related to the PFAS. We also, again, one final project that we are sitting down to meet with iBank on is the Claridge Drive pump station. Again, that project is complete in design. We believe we've received all the final review comments and all the permits on that project. We just need authorization from the iBank to put this project out to bid. Again, we will be discussing with them on September 17th. Jumping to the parking meter rates, we have the new kiosks installed. We have the final integration between Park Mobile and the kiosk systems is being implemented this week. So those kiosks should go live by the end of this week. As far as different energy initiatives, we continue to work with the energy audit team. We've begun receiving some of the drafts of the audit reports for the different facilities. They need a little bit more time for the draft of the wastewater treatment plant audit report. And upon completion of those, they will be summarizing them into a presentation and we'll schedule them for a public meeting. And again, we did follow up with the solar consultant on August 27th to fine tune their presentation and move their feasibility study to a proof of concept study. They are working through the comments that were received at the last meeting, and they are currently working on those updates now. The playground at the community center continues to advance in good form. The prefabricated restroom is scheduled for delivery and installation next week. There's some additional site work that is progressing, but the project should be complete within the next several weeks, and we will look to schedule a ribbon cutting ceremony and open the playground officially in the very near future, hopefully by the end of this month. A number of road projects to update on. The main one is with something coming up is Linden Avenue. Township met with Complete Streets Technical Assistance Team on September 23rd. They have recommended temporary demonstrations for traffic control. They are anticipating there will be public outreach the week of October 7th, with a potential installation as early as October 14th for a 1 to 2 week window for these temporary demonstrations. The demonstrations that are most effective will be implemented into the final design of the Linden Avenue project, which is scheduled for construction in 2025. And then a number of the other projects, Douglas Place, Boston Whitney, Windermere, and Derwent Avenue, those are all closed out. We are expecting to officially close those out with final DOT reimbursements and a formal final change order for each of those projects in the near future. As far as Everett Field goes, I know there's a bond ordinance to formally advance the funding for the final design of the project on tonight's agenda for introduction. Neglia Group has been directed to advance their design efforts. They've been given all the comments from previous meetings, and we will be presenting interim design plans along through the process to the governing body and prior to the final design being completed. The pickleball courts are currently out to bid. We'll be receiving bids on October 16th. We continue to work with the Shade Tree Commission on a number of street tree needs. We've accomplished a lot and advanced a lot of the most immediate needs. We've completed an entire townwide windshield survey, and we'll be working with both Finance Department and Shade Tree Commission on future budget needs to complete and carry through the rest of the needs that were identified. Jumping through, the emergency repairs to the communications tower building are expected to start on Wednesday of this week. They should take a few weeks to complete, but the building will be structurally stabilized, and then the building envelope repairs will be scheduled immediately afterwards. And we will be looking to put out to bid the project for the town hall repointing and window replacement in the very near future. We're waiting for the final bid documents from the architect at this point. That completes my report, unless there's any other questions.
Does anybody have any questions for the deputy manager? Councilmember Graham.
Thanks. Just for clarification, on the Complete Streets technical, I think we met with them in August, and then we're meeting again in a week or two.
Yes.
Okay, to consider different demonstration projects.
Right. This will be the second meeting. What they, I believe what they will be recommending in their final recommendation is 3 different forms of recommendations for Linden Avenue in different locations on Linden. They are going to recommend the installation of each of them to see which ones are effective versus those that are not effective.
Yeah.
But that, yes, you are correct. There will be a meeting with them prior to the neighborhood outreach and the implementation.
And I just want to reiterate what you said about the Shade Tree. I just came from the Shade Tree Commission meeting, and so there is a lot of great information and data that we need to work through, to make sure that we address all the needs in the township, and that comes with a price tag. So I'm very much looking forward to your continued working with them and all the administration so that we can make sure we fund that project appropriately. Great, thank you.
Mr. Roman.
Just sort of the same question I asked last time about the smoke testing. If there's anything interim that you can share, have we found major issues, minor issues? Are we looking at large capital projects? Are these things we can do as a maintenance? Kind of the preview.
Sure. There's a variety of items that are being identified. There are some miscellaneous connections that you could see. Roof leaders or potential sump pumps may be connected at the house by house level. There are sewer caps on people's sewer laterals. Those are very quick. It's a $5 sewer cap to put on it. There's small infiltration, but they can accumulate over time. Some of the larger items that have been identified, there are certain areas where we're finding that there's catch basins that are connected, seemingly connected to the sanitary sewer collection system. So there will be some additional investigation with our public works department, dye testing sewers and putting cameras through lines. But it seems there will be a combination of regular maintenance, removing some of the catch basins through some larger capital projects, and it's probably going to take several years to go through them. But again, with the rate study that was adopted with the rates that were adopted earlier this year, there was an assumption that we would have to put significant investment into both the collection system on the sewer side and the distribution system on the water side. So there should be a multi-year approach on this.
Okay, so this is within the realm of things we can handle, basically.
It is.
And then just a thank you. I think all of our summer construction did pretty well. It does look like the majority of our outdoor work should wrap before winter hits. So just want to say thank you to everyone in the township who's been involved in project management and execution. I think we did pretty well this year.
Yeah.
Good. That is just all.
Thank you.
Mayor, one item out.
Yeah.
The policy, the sponsorship policy, the town attorneys reviewed it. I know the council has had it. I didn't receive comments back, and I'd like to get that in motion. I'll be putting it in the handbook and policies if that's okay with the council. We'll need that for the future developments.
Seeing no questions.
Okay, I'll move on.
So thank you. Thank you. Our council member reports, Deputy Mayor McAvoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. He's somewhat repetitive here. I would like to congratulate Unico on another well-run Labor Day race. They had a wonderful day. And Unico, this is their major fundraiser for the year, and they do give a lot back to the community. So this is an important day for them. So congratulations to them and everybody that helped out, our police, fire, rescue, public works. They did a great job keeping us safe during the race, and congratulations to all that ran the race and finished. Also, summer concerts. We had a great year. It was, again, thanks to all the sponsors that chipped in to help make this happen. And thank you to our police department for their work during the summer at these events, and for our buildings and grounds that help out a lot behind the scenes to keep it running smoothly. And again, also, with the last couple of weeks, the fire department, the rescue squad, police, and public works, with all the emergencies that we had, 2 major fires. Thank you for all your hard work and what you do for the town of Verona. The other one thing, Sustainable Verona had a meeting last week. They do have on October 5th, it's going to be Saturday, October 5th, the EV fair. There you have about 8 to 10 electric vehicles already. They're working on an electric bike company, Voltaire, to be there, and they'll have a couple food vendors. It will be at the Verona Pool parking lot, the lower parking lot, from 11 to 3 o'clock. So anybody who wants to take a look at an electric vehicle, you're welcome to come up and sit in one and look around. And lastly, we'll end with happy birthday to the mayor for the past week.
Thank you.
Here, welcome. That's all.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councilman Roman.
Thank you. Most of my items are repetitive, but I will mention a couple of things. All of the summer events, all of the recreation programs. I think this was a really great summer in the township where we offered a lot. One of the way that I always look at community services is I want to make sure that no one can ever say that there's nothing to do. We had so much programming and so many opportunities available, and it was all executed very, very well. So just thank you to the entire township staff for putting everything together. That's the concert series, all of the rec programs, school, everything, the library program, everything we offered. Seems like it was a really good summer here. Also, thank you to the emergency services departments for their response to the 2 fires. One of the fires in particular, there were got some great comments on just the efforts that the fire department went through to save a lot of valuable personal items for a resident. The services, as always, are just incredibly compassionate. They're skilled. They respond quickly to, whatever it is, and just working in, hot conditions outdoors. And it's a very stressful job, and they volunteer. So really appreciate all of their work. And likewise, happy birthday to the mayor. And
Thank you, Councilman Roman. Councilwoman McGrath.
Thank you and happy birthday. I echo all the comments of my colleagues, the valiant efforts of the fire department, of the pool season that we had that was very successful, of the very wonderful and entertaining summer concert series that we had. And again, thank you to Unico for once again sponsoring not just a wonderful community event, but raising money for scholarships and other programs. They are just such a key nonprofit in our community. I enjoyed watching the race this year from the Forest Avenue neighborhood. which was really a pleasure. I want to encourage everyone to vote. Right now, we are actually in an election for the replacement of the late Congressman Payne. We are voting right now for a new representative in Congress. The election is Wednesday, September 18th. This is a very odd day to have an election. We're used to having elections on Tuesdays. So the early voting has begun. You can vote at the Verona Community Center from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday of this week, on Sunday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And if you still haven't voted by then, you can still vote on Monday, the 16th, from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. So I encourage everyone to vote early or vote at your normal polling place on Election Day for a new representative in the 10th Congressional District, which covers Verona. I attended, we just had Labor Day, and I want to note that I attended a lovely event in Newark on Friday, sponsored by the Essex West Hudson Labor Council, that was there to celebrate the achievements of labor. Many of the things that we have come to take for granted, like an 8-hour workday and paid vacation and, laws against child labor, all came from the labor union, labor movement. So I just want to thank all of our friends in organized labor. Today, I had the pleasure of attending a gun safety event with Congresswoman Mickey Sherrill. She is sponsoring legislation on safe gun storage. And since there has been such a rise in the amount of gun ownership across the country and in New Jersey, she is really alarmed, as was everyone who attended this event, about the rise in suicide and deaths of children. And so she is sponsoring legislation on safe gun storage, and I had the pleasure of attending and being a special guest. 82% of youth suicides involve a gun, and gun violence is the leading cause of death for children and teens. And in terms of veteran suicide, which was another focus of the event, 60% of veteran suicides are due to a gun. There was a stat that was given that was just astonishing, that 7,000 veterans died during Iraq and Afghanistan in the conflict. And since 9/11, 30,000 veterans have died by suicide. So it was really an important event. And considering this event was started before the Alabama school shooting, but then continued, she hosted this event, even though it was already in the works before that shooting. There was also a shooting at a football game in Wayne, in Passaic County. So this is a very topical thing, which is why I devoted some time in my report to it. And I appreciate everyone, just really thinking through how you store your weapons. I want to thank the Verona Police Department. They have been on the forefront of this for years, giving out information on Be Smart, which was one of the safety programs highlighted at this event. And I also want to thank our superintendent, who emailed information on the Be Smart program to every single parent in Verona. So we are doing some great work locally, but we need to continue to normalize the discussion about safe gun storage. And if anyone has any questions, they can reach out to me, our police chief, or look for that information on the Be Smart program. And I want to thank Congresswoman Sherrill for her proposed legislation, and I hope it's successful. We covered a lot of these. Okay, committees. We already spoke about Shade Tree. The Neighborhood Traffic and Safety Committee is meeting tomorrow night on Zoom. The Multicultural Inclusion and Accessibility Advisory Committee met at the end of August. They are planning a really great event with the library on Spanish Heritage Month on October 6th. It's going to be targeted to children and young adults, and it's going to feature a live podcast, which is going to be really interesting and different. I also want to highlight that the library is having an open house this Saturday, and as part of that is a voter registration drive sponsored by the League of Women Voters. Please contact the library's website for more information. Mayor, I would like to talk at a topic in new business, specifically about project planning when it comes to our rezoning of Bloomfield Avenue and what's happening with affordable housing. So if we can have just a few minutes to talk about that, I would really appreciate it. And I think that is my report. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Holland.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to echo some of the statements of my colleagues. My heart really goes out to the residents that were impacted by the recent fires. And I offer my sincere gratitude and respect for our first responders. Thank them. I thank them so much for their service. They are volunteer organizations, and it is tremendously emotional, let alone risky and dangerous work for them to do. So I'm just really grateful for them and for the support of our community for these residents that were impacted. I do also want to acknowledge that this was, well, and we're still in summer. And happy birthday, Mr. Mayor, another summer birthday. But it isn't fall yet. It feels like it's fall because the kids are back to school, but it has actually been thus far an extraordinarily warm summer. So I think it's really important for us to remain aware that we are still within hurricane season. If there's still a risk for extreme storms, we've already experienced some extreme storms and some extreme heat this summer. So I do encourage residents to prepare. With regard to the hot summer, I do think it was a very productive and positive pool season, but I look forward to receiving that rate study so that we can really drill down into the details on that. Also, I look forward to reading the survey results from pool members as well as families that participated in the rec programs to really get a sense of how successful those programs were, where there are areas that need improvement, and others. With regard to the Utico 5K, I definitely had a different view of it this year. I ran with my 10-year-old daughter, and she was very pleased to rank within the top 10 of the 10 and unders, but it was definitely an interesting experience, but she had a great time. She felt very accomplished for running this 5K, as did several of her friends. So that was actually really, really sweet to participate in the race with her, running through our neighborhoods and seeing a lot of people cheering her on. So that was really wonderful. I also want to acknowledge, as I referenced earlier, back to school, the VMAC committee did provide the Safe Homes Pledge to the various different organizations that are preparing packets or did prepare packets for back to school. I think it's really important for families to take the Safe Homes Pledge. SAFE stands for securing your firearms, matches, chemicals, medications, and alcohol, actively working to prevent underage alcohol and drug use, forbidding bullying, and evaluating computer, phone, and social media use. I think these are all really important things that we can work on as a community, and I'm grateful to be the liaison to the VMAC committee that works on these powerful messages. So thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Councilman Holland. We're going to have a public comment session on any item that anybody would like to discuss. Madam Clerk, would you please read the participation statement?
Anyone from the public wishing to speak on any matter, if you're attending by Zoom, please raise your hand by pressing the raise hand button on your monitor. If you're dialing in by phone, press *9. If you're attending in person, please raise your hand. Once you're recognized, you may approach the lectern. At that time, state only your name and township residence for the record. You're not required to provide your street address. However, if you do, please note that these meetings will be posted on the township's YouTube channel and addresses will not be redacted for any purpose. You'll have 4 minutes to address the council. There'll be no cross dialogue during this public portion, and after everyone wishing to speak has been heard, the council may address your comments and/or questions.
It's time. You're opening for public comment. Stola.
Good evening, Jean Stoloff, 102 Fairway. First, I'd like to say thank you again for the council's support in helping us deter the development of the woods at the top of Fairway and Howell. There is a meeting coming up this week, September 11th, and it is, I think the architect is going to continue with their testimony. I understand that Verona may be working on an opinion about stormwater, and I wanted to say thank you for doing that work. And if members of the council cannot be there to present this information to the planning board, I plan on attending and I can take a message to them and give them whatever documentation you would like me to deliver. And in looking forward, I think the other big concern for Verona residents is potentially the traffic flow. Should somehow the developer open up that main access road for beyond emergency use. And I think that if there's a way of deterring that traffic coming into the neighborhoods there, going across Forest Avenue towards the schools at, key hours of the day, that would be appreciated.
Thank you, Ms. Stoll. Follow-up response on a couple items when everybody's done.
Okay, thank you.
Ryan, calling in from home.
Good evening. This is Kevin Ryan, Verona, New Jersey. I just wanted to follow up on a point that Councilwoman McGrath made regarding the election, and I hope the municipal clerk can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe this election is just to complete the term for Congressman Payne. So this person who's elected will just serve until the end of December. So the seat will still be on the ballot again in the general election in November. Am I correct in that statement?
Yeah, we'll answer when you're done with your comment.
Okay, and then the second comment, I believe that Councilwoman McGrath may also have alluded to it in her presentation. When I'd like the council to consider informing the public in upcoming meetings about the possible effects of the next affordable housing round on Verona. I believe the councilwoman also mentioned this at a prior meeting, that we will be getting a directive, I believe, sometime in October, hopefully from the state, as to where we stand as a town in relationship to our affordable housing obligations, that we can start to plan early as to how we may have to meet them. And that's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. At this time, I will close public comment. Ms. Stoloff, thank you for coming. I do want to make sure that you saw our resolution that's in the consent agenda tonight, that we will, related to this development, that we will be sending to West Orange and the planning board, something that I had asked for, that the township attorney was kind enough to draw it up. But I think we need to take a strong statement and show that the governing body is here. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate your offer, certainly, of taking anything that the township prepares. Mr. Diarco, you have Mrs. Stoloff's information, right?
Yeah, I believe we do.
So if there's anything that we need to work out, the gentleman will make sure it gets to you. And I appreciate your advocacy, because it's something that affects the entire town, really, truly. And the more I see this development, the more I see what a disaster it is. So it's one of those things. And I agree with you on the traffic flow. Once again, the last that I spoke to Mayor McCarty of West Orange is that West Orange was very intent on not even improving the road that connects to Howell Drive. So it would be basically, it's not going to be gravel at this point or something along those lines with a gate. So I'm hoping that that continues, but if it doesn't, we, I think, had some conversations among council of potentially changing the traffic flow if we need to of our streets. We can't control West Orange, but we can certainly change the traffic flow of our streets to prevent incursion into those neighborhoods. And that I would definitely favor as well. To Mr. Ryan, you are absolutely correct in your assessment of the special congressional election, that the term will expire at the end of the current term, and which will actually expire in January, beginning of January. And I agree on the affordable housing piece. No, Mr. Diarco has mentioned a couple times that will be coming up. Right now, anything coming out on the number of units is an estimate. There are a couple of law firms and engineering firms out there that are estimating, but I've never ceased to have been surprised by the state of New Jersey, and will be waiting so impatiently, as I'm sure the rest of our council and our team will be, to get those exact numbers and plans on our public comments. There we go. We do not have any adoption of ordinances or hearings this evening. We have 2 ordinances for introduction. The first is H1. Madam Clerk, could you please read the title of H1 into the record?
Amending Chapter 5, Administration of Government, Article 2, Township Council, Section 26, Appointment by Council, by creating subsection A, Committee Meeting Attendance.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Let's move the ordinance. So, motion's made by Councilman Roman. Is there a second? The second is made by the Deputy Mayor. Is there any council comments on this? Councilwoman McGrath? I didn't have to look. I knew this one.
So, thank you, Mayor. As we corresponded today, I have a lot of concerns about this, the introduction of this ordinance. I've spent the last 13 years of my life volunteering pretty intensively for both my community and for other organizations, and I've actually led a lot of nonprofit volunteer organizations and advocacy groups. So I have a lot of experience with volunteerism. And, I sat with this ordinance a while, and I took the time to send the draft language to all of the volunteers of the boards and committees for which I'm liaison, and I got some really good feedback. The main concern is on the 70% threshold. And I did the math, and for many of our committees, that threshold would be met if a volunteer missed 3 meetings in a 12-month period. And for a few committees that meet 11 or 12 times, it's four times. And that does happen at a decent clip today. We have a group of volunteers who are parents, which we've actually worked really hard to increase their ranks and have more volunteers that are parents of children, both young and in their teen years, and they are just very busy. Many of our volunteers have full-time jobs. And, when the job says, hey, you have to travel here, you have to attend this meeting at night, it's not flexible. There are a lot of commitments that the kids have. I've observed volunteers calling in via Zoom from the sidelines of the soccer field, waiting in a car at another sports game, and trying to figure out, well, when I have this meeting on the night of a concert, what do I do? So I did get quite a bit of feedback from our current volunteers that this is a very high threshold, but I also got some, and a threshold that frankly may be too hard to meet. And our retirees as well, their joke, our retiree volunteers, is I've never been more busy than when after I retired. And now they have all sorts of commitments. They're taking care of grandchildren. They're dealing with their own health challenges. They're traveling a lot, and they're trying to avoid getting COVID. So there's a lot of things going on. So that's one set of comments. I did get some good feedback on our technology. So the Shade Tree Commission, and I believe Sustainable Verona as well, which the Deputy Mayor sits on now, and I used to sit on, they're trying a hybrid where they meet at the community center conference room, but they also want to be able to have some members on Zoom. And that technology has really not worked out well. They are still struggling to log in at every meeting. And so the feedback I got from the Shade Tree Commission is this policy is great, but this technology is still not working well. And so it would be a punishment almost to have this standard when this technology is not actually there just yet. And then other feedback I got was on subcommittees. So the multicultural committee they've broken into very small groups, and they're doing a lot of planning work outside of the meeting. So they are also concerned that some really productive members who maybe are in a streak where they just, haven't, attended, they just missed a meeting here or there, and they would hit the 70% threshold, are actually really productive members of the committee. And the process when the threshold is met is just very draconian. So I have concerns about introduction. I would like us to consider not introducing, maybe reworking this working through the technology issues, because again, I know everyone's been working on it, it's just still not there yet. And just giving a little bit of a pause. With that said, I am very much supportive of a policy that focuses on the 50% threshold. I have observed through 5 years serving on the council that this is an issue and we do need a policy. We have observed, I've observed members who just stopped coming. So I do want us to put in something, but my concern is at that 70% level. So I think if our process, maybe 70% is a warning, and then 50% is when the process with the removal kicks in, I think that would be something that we should think about going forward. Thank you for, and those are all my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councilwoman Holland.
So thank you, Councilwoman McGrath. I had a couple of additional notes. I was curious. So I do appreciate that this had been brought up by the Recreation Advisory Committee to have an attendance policy. And I do think it's worthwhile to do so. And we did discuss in new business some of these logistics. Seeing it in writing, I do have concerns that it is perhaps rather challenging for perhaps the average volunteer to follow along with. And I do have also some logistical concerns about where some of our boards and committees hold special meetings. Those special meetings may be on, odd evenings or at different times where people are not necessarily able to attend as easily. And so, are they going to be punished? Some of the boards and committees have alternates for this very reason, for example, the planning board. And if you have a lot of development, there's potential for several special meetings. If these are held at inconvenient times, then it may be that a member's inadvertently triggered this. But getting back to how this is kind of, in my opinion, and it's, a term of art, is that it's a bit clunky, in my opinion. So the notice is that you shall be considered removed. I think, that leaves room for confusion from residents to say you shall be considered removed. I also think the notice should really be more of a warning mechanism instead of like your first communication is that you are essentially removed. I think perhaps the notice should be that you may be considered for removal by the town council within, a certain period of time. I do also think it's challenging to refer to the appeal period as prior to the 15-day notice. So you receive this notice, you're then given 15 days. Up until that 15th day is your appeal period. So you're appealing before you've actually been removed. That's kind of unusual and distinct from most other actions. Usually you're appealing after the decision, the adverse decision. Then you're actually requesting a hearing at that time. I really think the average resident that's volunteering, for example, for the Rec Advisory Committee is probably not necessarily, looking at this as something where they're going to now have to seek a formal hearing. I'm also just concerned with the phrasing of this ordinance and whether or not it's actually, I do appreciate that the hearing mechanism is intended to provide due process to our residents. And I think that is a really important thing. I'm just concerned with the way the ordinance is presented, that it's not particularly user-friendly to the average resident. And these are the individuals that are volunteering for these committees. So while I agree with the concept of an attendance policy, I'm just a little concerned with how this is drafted right now. And unfortunately, I don't believe we had the drafting when we discussed it in new business. So it would have been an opportunity to perhaps redline it during the new business discussion. So those are just some of my concerns because I do, again, think it's a little clunky. I'm not sure if it's envisioning the special meeting process. And again, I feel like the notice is essentially telling somebody that they've been removed without actually giving them any opportunity for warning. Thank you.
Other comments?
I have a question. Exactly who and what committees or boards does this pertain to? Every single one? Or there's some exemptions? If it is everyone, then do we have to add something in here about what if someone has to recuse themselves from a meeting, planning or zoning? It was kind of thinking that this didn't pertain to zoning board or planning board. But after some of the comments right now, I believe there's a thought that it does.
Just the way you had originally said it does not, because this
Well,
has a
the state has a process for them. The other thing, and you could add more detail to it when I came to this, the thought was to have an ordinance that was flexible. It's like any rule or regulation. You take into consideration, hey, you've missed. Well, why did you miss? So there's that. That's why you get the letter, and that's why the due process, like Councilor Holland spoke about, is so important, because you want that communication to happen. For instance, if you had a board member, God forbid, they're sick and they have cancer and they're going to be out for a period of time, more likely than not, this would not even, nobody would trigger these notices to go out because they've already been notified, right? But many instances in the past that we've heard about, when I've sat on, for you as the attorney, are people that kind of disappear and you don't hear from them. They don't attend meetings. They don't really have a reason. You might see them in town or at an event or whatever, and they just don't. It's almost as though they want to be on the board, but they don't want to participate. And that's kind of what this was written for, so they can be removed. Because in some instances, the people that aren't participating aren't going to fight it. So that's the thought process behind, hey, you're going to be removed unless we hear from you. And then once you hear from you, then that triggers the process. Well, why are you out? And the communication opens up. So a lot of times, if you are missing, and I'll use one of those boards, for example, let's pretend you have a conflict. Well, you're never going to show up at any of the meetings where that conflict is discussed.
Right.
So you would think that the head of the board or the commission wouldn't even trigger this ordinance, but if they did, by mistake or whatever, a full letter goes out, they write in and say, hey, I'm not here to have a conflict, I can't show up. And you go, oh, okay, go back to work. And you could word this differently. This is just the way we set it up. I do think it was, not that it mattered, but I do think you did have a discussion. You actually made some changes the last council meeting. It is my.
We had this. We had this.
Yeah, so you
because I remember making changes to the text.
And this is my reason for asking this question was, I know in the past Board of Adjustments, we had an individual who got hit by a car. He didn't tell anybody. He was missing, I think, 8 to 10 meetings, and they thought he just disappeared. We've had planning board members and zoning board members that have recused themselves from 8 to 10 meetings for one application without any other applications coming forward. So I think maybe this is just, we're reading this as a legal document and it's stiff, whereas we should just
we can add some discretion in their discretion depending on the unexcused absences or something.
And do we put in here that it's the duty of the chair of that committee? We can do that all. Do we want to, that's a question for this council to decide.
Mr. Rutherford, thank you.
I would agree. That was where I was thinking about involving the chair of a committee who's most likely to be in communication with the members. I think that's really where you have the problem, is when the chair is trying to find somebody and they simply aren't responding. That's really, we have run into this situation on some of these boards where people just simply do disappear. I kind of agree that there should be some discretion or something here other than an automatic removal. The intent here is to encourage volunteerism and to make sure that we accommodate, but we do need to have a way when someone does just flat out disappear and stop attending that they can be removed. So I think that including the chair would be a way to get there.
I'm going to recognize myself at this point. Just on a couple of comments going through a couple of things that my council member said. But before that, I'll preface. The point of this ordinance actually came because not just the Recreation Advisory Committee, but several committee chairs have actually been frustrated that their members are not showing up in meetings. When somebody decides to be on a board or committee and puts that application in, one of the expectations is they will attend meetings. I find a 70% threshold to be quite reasonable. I would not agree with lowering it to a 50% threshold. Largely, one of the great points I heard from a committee chair was that part of the issue with people missing meetings is that business cycles again. Okay, I got to cancel. I'll call you when I'm done. But it's a business cycle. So what's happening is they'll decide something just like the meeting we're having right now. We had a discussion at the last meeting. We're cycling back and having another discussion on the same item. So part of the issue is making sure people show up. So I think 70% is actually pretty generous. And the reality of it is we have to ask our our members of boards and committees, when they assume that responsibility, that it really should be up to them. If they don't feel because of work travel or commitments or other things, it's really up to them to say, you know what, I'm going to pull myself out and then I'll reapply at a time where my time allows. And that's really what we should be asking people to do. So I don't see it as draconian, and I feel that term is not correctly used in the circumstance. But we need, and frankly, in my opinion, I want volunteers who are going to be responsible. I want volunteers who are going to be at the meetings in order to participate, because if they're not there and we've appointed them to be there, they're really not doing what we've asked them as council to do. And it's, I appreciate people who step up, but you also have to step up and do it. If you're on the rescue squad and you don't complete your required training, you can't answer rescue squad calls. If you're on the fire department and you don't attend drills, we don't want you in a burning building. Same idea. You have a commitment to what you're doing. And those obviously wouldn't apply under this ordinance. I'm just using those as examples. I would be in favor, in light of the subcommittee and special meeting issues that were brought up, changing some wording in front to say, where it says does not attend the required number of meetings, it should be the regularly scheduled meetings, so meetings in advance, right? So that would be fine. I know the planning, this would not apply, Mr. Roy, I just want to clarify, to the planning board, the zoning board, and the environmental and shade tree commissions, correct? Because those are state mandated boards that have their own due process regulations and statute. That's correct. Okay. So I think that's another important item to know. I think it's certainly fair to warn people. I have a little concern with putting a lot of the onus on the chair, because we do want to have a consistent approach. So I think, in my opinion, because we're the appointing authority, whether it's the manager, the mayor, or the council, we have 3 appointing authorities, that we want to make sure that the people we're appointing are doing what we're asking them to do as the appointing authority, right? So I think at that point, what it should be is that instead of them being removed, a process would be initiated whereby we consult with the chair. So we start with, okay, this person has not met it, we've done the attendance, we then consult with the chair, but we're not waiting for the chair to come to us, because some chairs just may not do that, and that's not necessarily serving public when we're trying to have people here. So then we've got issues with having quorum at meetings because of the attendance being limited. And we can't technically conduct, you can discuss, but you can't make it conduct business. I don't think that's fair to the public who attends on that side. But as somebody who, like Councilman McGrath, has spent a good portion of my life as a board member on nonprofit boards, in a variety of arenas, and I sit on several today. Part of the issue we all face is that when we need to be able to get our projects done, we need to make recommendations. We have boards and committees. A lot of them are working boards and committees that are somewhat independent, but the purpose of a lot of these boards and committees is to spend an extended period of time and effort looking at issues the council puts forth to the committees and providing us recommendations, and that process should move quickly and we don't want to hold back. So I think that I don't want there to be an appearance that having a policy is not showing appreciation for the people who volunteer in our community, because it's not the case. I think what it does is showing an appreciation for everybody on the community and their time, and also allowing us that if we have people who can't do the job, we have a process. We're not picking on one person. We're not singling anybody out. We're not doing whatever. When you have a consistent process, you allow that and provoke the opportunity. So I don't see a problem with some light changes to this as far as dealing with required meetings, and having it stay at 70%, but have a chair consultation and specifically write in that a recusal is not considered an absence. I think that's a fair point. But we don't have a lot of recusals on non-policy making boards. So, to be fair, so that's not as big of an issue when we take out the planning board, the zoning board, the environmental commission, anybody who acts on land use applications, things like that. So those are my thoughts on on that side. And I don't think the subcommittee piece would be involved. Like I said, the subcommittee meetings because it would be regularly scheduled meetings. Councilman Holland.
I do think that the legislation needs to specifically exempt those other boards that it's intending to exempt. So I think that's an additional red line. And I would strongly urge that the first written communication to a resident volunteer on one of these boards is not the denial. I think the first written communication should be some form of a notice warning that they, that they may be considered for this removal, because it is always possible that in the scenario that was given by Mr. Aloya, if somebody's dealing with cancer, maybe they're not always answering their phone right away. Maybe they're dealing with other crushing problems. And I think getting a written correspondence saying you're removed from this committee could be perceived as very insensitive to a resident volunteer. So I think having that notice provision in there would be very worthwhile. Consultation with the committee chair is fine for me, but ultimately the way it's presented in the ordinance, I do think is clunky and not user-friendly for the average resident. So those are my comments.
My suggestion is on the stylistic part of it, if you would provide some specific recommendations to illustrate your point on that, maybe edits in a red line that you could send to Mr. Aloya, so we can be more specific in understanding that would probably be helpful on the format of the style piece of it.
Sure.
Councilman Holland, McGrath, right?
Thank you. So I'm a little confused between what our town attorney said and then some follow-up questions that were made. Because what I heard you say, Mr. Aloya, is that the intent of this ordinance was that if someone basically had an excused absence, like, well, I'm attending my child's concert, so I can't make this meeting tonight, that doesn't actually count towards really as an absence, because they're communicating with the chair like, oh, I have a conflict or I have business travel, so I won't be there. Is that going to be worked in? Because again, while I do sit on several boards and committees, I actively manage volunteers and have done so for over a decade. And again, I'm just concerned with the 70% that sometimes, again, we have well-intentioned people. We're attracting actually some of the best volunteers in Verona to work on a board and to volunteer for board and commission. And then at the same time, they're doing other things. They're coaching Little League or softball teams. And again, they're trying to manage very complex lives, or they're babysitting for their grandchildren. So I just want to, I will have continued concerns if we stick to 70%, unless we have a softened language in there that kind of says, like, if there's been communication with, if there's been communication why they're missing a meeting, we're good. But we're going to run into problems with 70%. It's just, unfortunately, it's just too high of a threshold for the reality of how volunteerism is in this day and age at this moment. So I don't know, town attorney, if you can just clarify your previous comment.
Just as a point of clarification, the chair has to recognize anybody to speak. So if you would allow me to do that, I just want to keep the meeting going in that capacity. I did just want to have a comment before Mr. Aloya jumps in as well in the council discussion, is that I think we have to be careful about saying that the chair can excuse absences, right? Because the problem with that is if we're excusing, let's say, somebody traveling for work and things like that, and that happens 75% of the year, that they're excused absences, that person isn't really meeting the obligation of what we need our members of committees to do, right? So we have to be, I don't want to, if we're going to decide what an excused absence is, that needs to be done by legislation, not done necessarily by the chair. But also I think the 70% accounts for those excused absences, in my opinion, right? And really and truly, if we have somebody who, because of other commitments, once again, can't attend 70% of our meetings, then we have to have a conversation about whether that's right for that committee. And I think that's why we're engaging in this process. But, yeah, I don't agree that somebody should be immediately kicked off. But at the same point, if we don't want somebody who holds a spot that could be held by somebody who could be at 100% of the meetings, if they're there. And the other nice thing is that because of our system of government and every meeting being open, even an individual who may not be able to commit to attending all the meetings could still come to a meeting and participate publicly. But I just didn't, that's my, that's where what I see when we're talking about excused absences. But Mr. Aloya, if you wanted to jump in at this.
Sure. So with regard to this, foremost, when this was drafted, obviously I did it at your request, and I took into consideration the rec department. I thought a lot of what they said actually with some tweaks, and we changed it last council meeting. But that being said, the way I envisioned it to be used is when you reach the threshold of 70%, or you miss 3 consecutive meetings, if you look at it, it's the clerk, and we discussed that in the last council meeting, it would be through the clerk would send this letter. But before, the key is in the middle of the paragraph of the ordinance, before notification is sent by the municipal clerk, it actually gets placed on the agenda here. So the mayor or the manager, if the appointing authority, it's informational, and if it's the council, you guys actually have to pass a resolution. So through that process, even before the clerk does that, and you can include it in the ordinance if you want, but I don't think it's necessarily necessary. A couple of things have probably already happened. One is the person who's on the board or committee should be aware, because we should notify them of this rule, all right? So when you get appointed, or if we pass this ordinance, whenever in the future, everybody gets notified of it, so they know the requirements, so they shouldn't be surprised. Then you have the chair of the committee, hopefully he's reaching out to its members within this to see what's going on, encourage them to come. Then you have the municipal clerk, before she puts it on the agenda, it's going to call him or her and say, hey, what's the deal, you're going on the agenda? And then the clerk will bring that information back to the council or to the mayor, to the manager to discuss it. And then you guys actually have to pass a resolution before that notification goes out. So there's a lot of different communications that should be going on that we can include and be more specific in the ordinance. That, and direct the clerk, when you get notified, you have to send out, or you have to call and let them know they're going to be on the agenda or whatever, or you can change it completely. So the idea was this would be a multi-step process, and certainly you'd be having a discussion before the notification comes out. So you guys would be able to decide ultimately, and you can add it to legislation as you indicated, Mayor, whether somebody should be excused or not excused, or what the reason is. And it's almost as though you develop, I'll call it like case law, right? Once you develop one rule, then it goes on and on and on, and as things go along, because you can't necessarily think of every reason someone might be out and under what circumstances and whether they should be excused. So as you go along, in my opinion, you develop rules and regulations that are very much so more specific as far as if anyone should be excused, and then you can add it to the ordinance if you want. But again, I don't necessarily believe that is necessary either, but we can draft this any way you want to. This was, again, just something taking into consideration my recollections, other ordinances, but also what the rec department had recommended, and then your feedback, meaning the council's feedback in the last meeting.
So my recommendation, I think we have a lot of feedback clearly on this, is that we could have a procedural motion to table consideration. But I think at this point, rather than everybody verbally discussing, I don't know if we have consensus on every topic, is that everybody write a piece of legislation and give it to the township attorney to say and write out what we would want this to look like. What is the process? It doesn't have to be, a formal ordinance, but what would you like the process to be? Let's write those out. Let's give them to the township attorney and get a little homework and, write that out. And the township attorney could then use that to try to find a document that could reflect and build consensus among all of us. And I think honestly, that's what we have to be productive at this point, because we're all on kind of different planes. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I was gonna say something very similar. We're reading way too deep into this. I agree with all the changes that everybody up here came up with. I'm on here 7+ years. I think this has come up twice with 2 votes. So I think it's just something that isn't that common. It's not gonna happen that often, but when it does, we need something like this document just to say, okay, we have to remove this person and this is how we'll do it. I just want to clarify this. We're going to put the boards down. We're zoning, planning board, and it's all the commissions, correct? Shade tree, environmental, historic preservation also. So it's just those 5. or any other ones you think of. So at least five. Okay. Thank you.
Councilman McGrath?
May I make a suggestion on work that either someone from the township can do or possibly our town attorney to help us in our assignment is maybe if we could be directed to the provisions of all of the groups that we're actually pulling out, because apparently they all have removal provisions. So I do have to say that on Shade Tree, there was a lot of confusion on that in the past. So I'm going to be really curious to see if that is well documented at the state level. But could we be pointed to what those those attendance provisions are for all the things we're exempting? Maybe we'll actually find the answer in there. Or what that common ground is. Maybe there's a standard or a best practice in another community that we're not considering.
That's an excellent point. So we all have homework. And one last item before we take a procedural cue on this, I do want to address the technology as to the community center. I think that's a very simple fix. I've used that teleconference system and had hybrid meetings on multiple occasions for emergency management and stuff like that. We actually did it for our township manager interviews and everything worked well. That might be a training item that we could send somebody from the township administration, IT, our township clerk is an expert in this stuff, maybe attend one of those meetings and help through. And that might be a really simple way of addressing that situation because we have to stay.
I can speak to that, being the liaison to the sustainable. The clerk has been on so when there's a problem and talks the chair right through it, and we've always had it up in front. That room is, I think it may be a training thing, and maybe we take the chair and pick another person on the committee just in case the chair can.
And we have spoken before about having a chair guidebook, like a community chair guidebook, and the township clerk is working on that as we speak. So, Councilman Newman, you made the motion, so you have the privilege of closing the debate.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to table this for further action at a later meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, the motion to table is not debatable. Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Councilwoman Holland,
Yes.
Councilwoman McGrath,
Yes.
Councilman Roman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy,
Yes.
Mayor Tamburo.
Yes.
Mayor, motion passes 5-0.
The ordinance is so tabled until an appropriate time. We are now moving on to H2 on first reading. Madam Clerk, please read the title of H2. Is there?
Bond ordinance providing a supplemental appropriation of $150,000 for preliminary planning expenses for the improvement of Everett Field located on Bloomfield Avenue, block 707, lot 10, in and by the Township of Verona in the County of Essex, New Jersey, authorizing the issuance of $142,500 bonds or notes of the township, finance part of the cost thereof.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Would somebody move the ordinance?
So moved.
Motion is made by the Deputy Mayor. Is there a second?
Second.
Yes, second is made by Councilwoman Holland. Tonight, is there any discussion on this item? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Councilwoman Holland,
Yes.
Councilwoman McGrath,
Yes.
Councilman Roman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy,
Yes.
Mayor Tamburo.
Yes.
Mayor, H2 will be numbered ordinance 2024-33. It will be published according to law, and a public hearing will be held on September 23rd.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We are moving on to our consent agenda. We do not have any minutes this meeting. We do have several resolutions. I did not before the one of the ones I wanted to bring to the attention of the public. Would somebody please move the consent agenda? So moved. The motion is made by Councilman Roman. Is there a second? I'll second it. The second is made by the Deputy Mayor. This time I'll open for public comments on the consent agenda only. This, so we have to read the public participation statement again because we've had a little change in our ship online. Madam Clerk.
Anyone from the public wishing to speak on the consent agenda? If you're attending by Zoom, you may raise your hand by pressing the raise hand button on your monitor. If you're dialing in by phone, press *9. If you're attending in person, please raise your hand before you approach the lectern. Once you're recognized, clearly state only your name and township of residence for the record. You're not required to provide your street address. However, if you do, Please note that the meetings will be posted on the township's YouTube channel and addresses will not be redacted for any purpose. You'll have 4 minutes to address the council. There'll be no cross dialogue, and after everyone wishing to speak has been heard, council may address your comments and or questions.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Seeing no public comment, I will close public comment. Is there any council discussion? Deputy Mayor?
It's the question on the K1, the contract change for Douglas Place. Is there any specific item that required that increase of funds for that job? I mean, it was pretty low, but the percentage is close to 16%.
The that were available this with grant money.
Awesome. Thank you. And then I have questions for K4. I mean, there's going to be a little bit of discussion on this if you want to acknowledge. And then I can get back to K4.
Certainly.
Nothing to go?
A quick question for administration. Why on for K-12 are we why, since this was part of a larger contracting project, normally the shade tree replacement as part of a road reconstruction project is done through the vendor that was hired, and we don't normally vote separately on the vendor who's putting in the trees. So why are we doing it that way this time?
When those it was contractors decision for this work.
Thank you. That explains it. Thanks.
Councilwoman Holland.
I apologize, and I was remiss for not mentioning it earlier. But I would like to pull item K-12 for a separate vote, please. I'm sorry.
We'll amend this one of our requests motion. Actually, we'll just do that right now. As a matter of fact. Did you move this one?
I did, so I will amend my previous motion to separate out K-12 for separate vote.
And then who's second on this one? Who seconded the
Jack.
Jack? Okay. Deputy Mayor, you, I second. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
K-12 is removed at West Councilman Holland. All right, Deputy Mayor, I think we're back to you.
Okay, just want to make a note that I did contact the clerk today about minor changes on K10 and K11. Those changes were made. Providing of services, what they were. So on K4, the resolution that we have for the West Orange Planning Board, I know it's not too late, is if for a possible change in wording, because we have down here, be it further resolved, requesting the West Orange Planning Board to deny the application to West Essex Highlands LLC, Block 179, Lot 32, Warner Road, West Orange. We have it basically talking about if they change their stormwater management plan, we'd be okay with this. And I was going to suggest some different wording in there to say, basically to the effect of, for a number of reasons, including but not limited to the revision of the stormwater management plan that is current with the state of New Jersey, because they're working on the old rules and regulations.
Is there any objection to that edit? It's Councilman Holland.
I don't have an objection. I'm just Where are you proposing this edit?
In
Not envisioning it.
in the bottom of the resolution, be it further resolved,
Okay,
that is respectfully going all the way down to where it says Warner Road, West Orange. And instead of, unless it is revised as necessary to implement the most recent stormwater rules and regulations, it's kind of just sticking just to that. Whereas we had someone come up, Ms. Stoloff earlier, there's other things that we're worried about, including traffic, the amount of trees are taken down. So rather than being specific just to stormwater management, I suggest, and I wrote for a number of reasons, including but not limited to the revision of the stormwater management current plan from the state of New Jersey's rules and regulations. And address the concerns raised in Mr. Fierro's July 26th report.
so essentially you would be restating part of the title into the conclusion.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I would not have an objection to that. I mean, another alternative is you can just strike everything following the comma and just insert a period where the comma is.
You could just say deny the application, West Sussex. Yeah.
That's essentially what I'm just saying. Yeah.
Yep.
Just,
So you
Fine
could
with
just,
that.
yeah,
I'm
you
fine
could
with
just
that.
put a period there, or you could restate what is largely in the title of the document itself. So I would be fine with either. Thank you.
I think, my opinion is just putting a period after LLC would be just fine. Councilwoman Verona.
this is a question for the administration. Did we ever get clarification on this project on where the water and sewer was gonna hook up? And are they like hooking into our water and sewer?
This is a closed session item.
Yeah.
Right, so
Oh,
we discussed this in executive.
There's
session.
comments for closed session.
okay.
So a couple of questions
I
on
just
this.
gotta recognize Mr. Roman.
Oh, I'm sorry.
First off, a brief Scrivener's error in the heading implement is.
Yeah,
Yep.
these were sent to her earlier.
Right, okay. And then secondly, I would just sort of concur that my feeling is that there's a lot of reasons other than just stormwater to deny this application. It's overly dense. It does result in environmental impact due to the loss of trees, wildlife habitat, et cetera. So I agree with the comments that we shouldn't structure this in a form that it sounds like if they comply with current stormwater management regs that we're fine with it, because we aren't. So the question is, do we want to get more of that into whereas clauses to go into some further detail other than just stormwater management? Or should we rely solely on the Boswell report? Should we put some more meat into this, is really what I'm asking.
My opinion is to send something now, just because.
I think we need.
We don't need to send something now. I mean, I wouldn't delay, but here at the meeting this evening, do we want to?
I mean, I think we could add we added the proposal impact township government. And perhaps adding whereas it says furthermore, the proposal has potential to greatly affect the quality of life of Verona residents with increased traffic, environmental impact, sound, There's added another whereas in there, between the second and third whereases.
And I think that the amount of tree removal should be flagged in here.
I agree.
Yes, because they're up over 5,800, as stated on their record. It's from. So my other questions are, has Paul Fierro, at the last meeting, they stated that his stormwater management report was based on a prior plan. Has he reviewed the current plan that they have on file?
So another,
Has there been
that's
another
another concession. This one. Councilwoman McGray.
Well, so I understand that you want to like kind of maybe strengthen this, but where I'm relying on what's in front with the Boswell letter, so. Yes, I guess my concern is I would like us to stick with the letter because we already sent it to them and that's what they had a chance to respond to and they didn't. So now we're affirming, hey, you really should deny this because you're not following the stormwater regulations. I would like us to keep to what we saw, or if there's, because I was not in the last executive session, if we want to table this, go into executive session, come back and strengthen it, I would be fine with that. But I just, before we add additional language, I'm just not 100% comfortable. I just want to be brought up to speed. And that could have been done, in between the last meeting and this one, but so I'm more than, if we can table it, that's great, but if not, we'd really like, I didn't disagree until we started adding language. Because I just need more information.
Mayor, may I recommend procedurally, Councilor Sure. I would suggest then what we might do is still intend to pass this evening, but after executive session, I don't know that we'll propose adding an executive session in the middle of the meeting, but that's at your discretion. But we might have some further matters to discuss in executive session before crafting this, but I would definitely like for us to get something approved tonight.
Good. Before, may I make a point?
Yes, that'd be.
Before we go into, when we're talking about the prior letter, the West Orange Planning Board denied that letter and didn't review it because the author of that letter was not there to present and give argument for or against it. It was the principal of the firm that was there. And so they therefore didn't accept it. Or they have the letter, but they're not going to accept it or review it as a planning board because that author is not there to answer questions based on it. So the letter is basically in limbo.
Yeah, this goes back to the conversation that we had about the. I'll save my comments for another time. I'll hear a motion to table this, and we can take it off the table after executive session.
Fair?
Yes.
If you, unless I'm missing something, I believe you, after all this discussion, have only made 2 changes.
Yeah.
And I've written down the changes, so if you want me to read them now, you might be comfortable voting. The one change is obviously we removed part of the paragraph, put a period in, so that's easy. And the other change is the third whereas. I've added language to the third whereas clause on the resolution, which now states, whereas the proposal will impact the township of Verona based upon the changes in land cover and runoff that will discharge towards Verona and the Peckman River, semicolon, dramatically increase traffic, semicolon, significant environmental impacts based upon the removal of trees. And then it goes on. So just listed the 3 additional reasons that you guys discussed to me.
And I just note that the title would probably also need to be amended to strike everything after lot 32 because the deputy mayor's request to not make it an unless, so like.
Yeah, so we'll change the title. That's just so indicated.
Great. Councilor, just a brief question. Will any of the executive session items play into adding any language
No.
for both the administration and me?
We're still discussing exception.
Okay.
Councilwoman McGrath?
Yes, so I just want to understand this. Is there a traffic study that we are referencing, or is there a traffic study that we have seen? I just want to make sure that when we make statements, they are backed up by fact. And yes, like I have heard about this project and we all know intuitively, I just want to make sure we're not just saying the same thing that everyone says about every development, that we're sticking with facts. So, and the facts are not great on this development in terms of them using the wrong stormwater management guidelines. But in terms of traffic and, and other things, I just want to make sure we are tying back to a document that we have read. Can someone answer that?
Well, I think
I think
He was not a traffic study, but the fact that
They have not done one.
The fact that there'll be,
Okay.
hundreds of units, I think we can make a reasonable assumption that there will be more cars in that area.
Yes, of course, but we are also, the flip side is we have done development and we have heard these complaints. And again, we would like to go to, documented studies to back up our facts. I understand that we want to present the strongest case, but I'm just a little concerned with adding this one sentence. I was fine until then. So I just really don't want to just throw in the kitchen sink. I would rather us focus on what we were doing on behalf of our residents, which was really focused on stormwater, which was really effective. And I want to thank all of the members of council who were really pushing to get to this. So I'm just a little concerned about taking that one sentence further.
I would, if anything, I would concur with, I'm okay with taking the traffic piece out. I think that the traffic as it pertains to Verona has to do with a very specific issue and a very specific location that is being handled mayor to mayor and administration to administration. I think the tree loss is documented, and I think that that's a huge impact. I think that's got to go in.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And the tree loss concern.
Yeah, I would agree with the tree loss as it relates to the stormwater
Thank you.
specifically
Yes.
and the environmental impact and so on.
Okay.
However,
I'm sorry, but there's one there. But concern from, I think every resident that came up to us has been at the meetings, the planning board meetings over there, and are all concerned with the traffic in the forest area neighborhood. Now, although, and thank you for reaching out to their mayor, that is a verbal conversation. They can, as soon as they approve this project, they can also turn around, or if they have a different council, they can turn around and open a road onto Howell. So I think unless we include that, we are not really doing right for our constituents.
My suggestion is perhaps at that point, we would want to have a separate resolution that deals when they've started talking about the traffic pattern. We have some more information on that. We can have as many resolutions as we want. They're going to love hearing from us. Maybe we do that and, and go from there. If that's okay, Deputy Mayor, does that work?
So now the title has been changed, just to have a period after LLC. The end has been changed, just to have a period after LLC. The third whereas now says, right proposal will impact the township of Verona based upon changes in land cover and runoff that will discharge towards Verona and the Pecos River and will have a significant environmental impact based upon the removal of trees. Semicolon end.
Okay. All right. Excellent. We have dealt with item number K4.
One last comment on that.
No, you got it.
And I'm just going because I've attended these meetings and so too with the letter from somebody who, if we want to present this, I will be going to the meeting on Wednesday night. So if we want to present this resolution and they say they're not going to accept it unless someone presents it, I will be there and I will be more than happy to stand up, present it.
Can we
even read it?
Can we get the deputy mayor a copy with the seal on it in one of those nice red folders to bring up?
But I'm still gonna.
Yes, please. We'll give him another copy.
Yes.
We'll have it sent
In
by.
case it's presented and they don't want to accept it, I will.
Perfect. Give one of our nice red folders with the seal on it. Excellent. Thank you. I'll engrave it into. What's that?
No,
You're more fiscally conservative, Mr. Diarco, as you should be, in keeping all the supplies in your control. Madam Clerk, would you please call a roll on K1 through K11 and K13 through K17?
Councilwoman Holland,
Yes.
Councilwoman McGrath,
Yes.
Councilman Roman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy,
Yes.
Mayor Tamboro.
Yes.
Chair resolutions K1 through K11 and 13 through 17 will be numbered resolutions 147 through 162.
Thank you. Would somebody move resolution K12, please?
So moved.
Motion's made by Councilwoman McGrath. Is there a second? Second. The second is made by Councilman Roman. We have already called for public comment on this because it was part of the consent agenda before, so we don't need to do that again. Is there any discussion on the Turf Smith contracts?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to recuse myself from this item.
Excellent. Thank you. And any other comments? Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Councilwoman McGrath,
Yes.
Councilman Roman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy,
Yes.
Mayor Tamboro.
Yes.
Mayor, resolution K12 will be numbered 163 and it passes 4-0 with one refusal.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We have no addendum this evening. We do have some appointments on the agenda. We recently expanded the size of our Recreation Advisory Committee. So we have the appointments to for Clarissa Leon, John Tadas, and Ashley Rava. I did ask the town clerk to contact the managers delegate to make sure that he was not interested in one of the voting positions, and he did decline a voting position. So we had that. So I just want to make the council aware that we have a fair process. That and the way that the terms were assigned. If anybody has another option, that is perfectly fine. But I suggested to the township clerk that we list them with whoever applied first would have the term that goes the longest, and then back, because we have 3 different term endings, and there's no particular order in that. I didn't even know who applied first until the clerk put that together. Somebody move the appointments.
So moved.
Motion's made by Councilwoman Holland, our liaison to this committee. I'm going to second this because I haven't seconded anything tonight. Is there any discussion on the appointments?
Just thank you.
And I concur. I'd also like to thank the chair of the Recreation Committee, Corey Shore, who has showed not only tremendous leadership, but also administrative skill, project management, foresight, and communication. Mr. Shore is really an example. I thank him for his advocacy and his honest leadership and feedback. And clerk, you call the roll on these.
Councilwoman Holland,
Yes.
Councilwoman McGrath,
Yes.
Councilman Roman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy,
Yes.
Mayor Tamboro.
Yes.
Mayor appointments are voted affirmatively 5-0.
Thank you. All right. We are moving on. Councilwoman Holland have asked for a discussion on the Bloomfoot Avenue zoning and on our affordable housing.
No, actually.
I'm sorry, your Councilwoman McGrath.
Yes, thank you. Well, in the spirit of kind of good planning and thinking ahead, I think it would be a good idea if our administration could work with our planner and with our special planner for affordable housing, just to put together a timeline on how everything's going to come together over the next 5 to 6 months. I noticed that as I was not at the last meeting, that the council approved yet another sending yet another area of need of redevelopment to the planning board. As I've stated for a very long time, our zoning needs to be fixed. I know it's in the works. I'm getting, a little anxious as, it seems like we have a lot of properties for sale. Walgreens will be closing at some point. We have developers who clearly want to get going, and it just feels a little hodgepodge. And then we of course have the big October reveal statewide on our affordable housing numbers. So I think a little planning would go a long way, especially since so that we can have a line of sight on, again, what are we working through in terms of our rezoning? What are we anticipating in terms of the state's process? So we can see how it syncs together, but also hold all of our vendors accountable to a timeline. I just want to make sure that we are, really moving things forward. It's great that the C2 zone is passed. So we fixed that. I know we're working on the area of need of redevelopment. And also we're getting questions from residents. So I just think a little planning would go a long way. And that's what I wanted to bring up tonight.
I believe the township administration has expressed the timeline in the past.
Yeah. They ran one report that was submitted. We'll be meeting with the team again in anticipation of that October date and number we will be getting. So we're working on that in conjunction with the planner, the Javelin, for the areas in need of redevelopment.
Okay, great. It would be great to see it like synced up. Thanks.
Any other?
Your comment on that? We have always thought of this, and for any development, any large piece of property, if you bring up Walgreens, no matter what we plan for, they're going to always come. They're going to come forward, and they're going to want their area declared an area you need a redevelopment. So it's going to come back to us to decide eventually in the long run. And we always have in place our ordinance that requires a 20% set aside for any development. That if anybody on Bluefield Avenue wants to develop right now, they're going to have to adhere to. So we kind of have prepared for that, but I do, you know, we were given the schedule of what the time frame was from the administration a couple months ago. So that's, I mean, until we really get these numbers, it's always been something we always anticipate. But once again, and I'll go back to 2017 and to 18, you get the numbers and the numbers always change. So, you know, they move the goalposts day after day. So hopefully, you know, October will give us some good numbers.
Thank you. Any other items for new business? Hearing none. At this time, I'll open for public comment on any item that anybody wishes to speak about. The same public comment statement applies. And I see Mr. Ryan. Well, I don't see Mr. Ryan. Have a hand. Doesn't have a hand. Okay.
Yes, Kevin Ryan, Verona, New Jersey. Just a question about your last discussion that Councilwoman McGrath initiated. At the end of the last round of affordable housing, I just want to confirm that I believe as part of the agreement, there was a corridor along Bloomfield Avenue that was designated as a potential site for affordable housing redevelopment inclusion. I would just like to know if that still is the case, and but also follow up on the deputy mayor's pronouncement. Before the last round started, we were assured by our special counsel for affordable housing that we were in total compliance, and lo and behold, we were in total compliance until we were like 120 units down. So I'm very happy to see that you've gotten some outside expertise to come in and help you decipher what the plans should be. And hopefully we won't get into a situation that I believe Milburn is still involved in, where there's 400 court cases and 5 or 6 interveners. So hopefully things will go a little bit smoother. And I think the quicker you can get the public on board, the better it will be for all of you. Thank you.
That's right. Any other public comment? Since he was nominated at this time, response to Mr. Ryan, I am aware of no change in the status quo as far as the Bloomfield Avenue corridor. Unless anybody else is. Okay. This time we have passed a resolution to go into executive session. Will we be taking any official action, Mr. Aloya, Mr.
Yeah.
Diaco? No. Then we'll see everybody in 2 weeks. In the same time, same station. Wonderful night.
Yeah.
Do we